There's reasons why each of those 9 types do what they do. There's an inner core motivation. I think we need to be aware of the fact that when we're in conflict, that core part of us, that wound, that fear, that desire, that's what usually is getting pressed on. That's what's being touched on, and that's what we're responding to. So knowing that each type has a different motivation, a different fear, a different desires, super helpful for navigating conflict because we're trying to get to a different place.
Friends, welcome back to Mending Divides. I'm Jer Swigert, and today we get to lean into a conversation about 2 things that we bump up against every single day: conflict and our own wiring. If you've been around here for a while, you know that we don't treat conflict as something to be avoided, but as the very place where relationships are tested, trust is built, and peace is made. And yet, how we naturally show up in the heat of conflict often has as much to do with our personalities as it does with the situation itself. That's why I'm thrilled to be joined by my friend and Enneagram coach, Rob Yackley. Together, we're going to take 4 journeys around the Enneagram types, not just so that we can better understand ourselves, but so that we can learn how to take good care of each other in the inevitability of conflict. We'll explore what the Enneagram is and how it sheds light on our default responses to tension, what it looks like to bring our most integrated selves when things get hard, the unique gifts and traps each type brings to conflict, and even some practical ways to move from reactivity to resourcefulness in the moment. So whether you're brand new to the Enneagram or you've been digging into it for years, this conversation is going to give us handles for showing up more fully, more compassionately, and more peaceably in every corner of our lives. Let's dive in. Rob, where I'd love to start, honestly, is with you personally as somebody who has worked with leaders and faith leaders, corporate leaders. But one of the things that you do so well is you help leaders grow their imagination for what it means to bring faith communities to life in unique ways, in unique neighborhoods, in unique soils across the country. And in your experience of working with leaders, myself included, I know that you found this tool called the Enneagram to be really helpful. So can you just tell us a little bit more about you and why you work with leaders the way that you do? And then when did the Enneagram start to show up in your life as a tool that you found to be helpful?
Yeah, I've been working with communities for probably 40 years, all different kinds of communities, intentional communities, missional communities, missions teams, neighborhood communities, work with some corporations, and used a ton of tools over these years to help people grow in their self-awareness, their own personal development, their awareness of the world, what's going on around them, how to see the world, how to interact with the world. And I have not found a tool more effective in 40 years than the Enneagram, and have used it for most of that time. And I think what makes it so effective, what makes it so helpful is it's a dynamic tool. A lot of personality tools, and I've used a lot of them, they're a bit static. They show you what you're like. You know, you are extrovert, you are an introvert, you are, sensory, you're, all those different tools. And the Enneagram also tells you a bit who you are, but it also tells you how you're doing. Are you growing? Are you evolving? Are you stepping back? Are you falling back? Like, how are you doing? How are you growing? And then it doesn't just tell you how you're doing. It's not just about self-awareness, but it's also about other awareness. And I think that's something I really appreciate. Yeah. That's why I use it so much in team building and community building, is because, man, this will help you understand the people around you, what motivates them, what animates them, what trips them up, how to interact with them. When they're speaking, what are you hearing? When you're speaking, what are they hearing? So it's a great way to understand each other. And I honestly don't know that a day goes by in coaching, leading communities, workshops, leading leaders, that I'm not processing through the filter of the Enneagram. Oh, okay, this person's probably a 4 and they're with this bent. And so super helpful tool.
I agree. And you're the one who introduced me to it. And, it was brand new to me. I didn't know that it's an old tool. And it's something that's been around for a long time that seems to have been gaining some momentum recently. I think for the reasons that that you just mentioned. I mean, I've been pretty fluent in like the Myers-Briggs and like Strengths
Mhm.
Finder, and I
Yep,
love those tools.
I do too.
Yeah, because they highlight some realities and they help me understand, yeah, like myself and a little bit of
Yeah,
the why and a little bit of the how, but it's the Enneagram for me that really began to expose both the beauty and the shadow sides. And I
yeah.
like what you said. It forces us or maybe invites us to ask the question, how am I doing?
Mhm.
And how am I doing specifically in relationship to other people?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and so now for about a decade, we've been using this tool throughout global immersion, and it's not just a leadership tool. It's a
No,
tool for all of us to
absolutely.
sort out how to show up and how to be in relationship with other folk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Of course, as it relates to this conversation, because, Mending Divides is a conversation about conflict. And our conviction is that conflict is inevitable. And
Mhm.
so it suits us all to figure out how to navigate conflict well. And
Mhm.
I think leverage it as an opportunity for transformation.
Yeah.
One of the challenges that we've run into as an organization is the idea that there really is no universal way to navigate conflict. I think there are some universal tools that are really helpful, and like curiosity, as an example,
Yeah.
really helpful tool. Belly breathing, really helpful tool in terms of navigating conflict. But what we're finding is that different folk are oriented toward conflict differently. And
Yeah.
and their impulse toward conflict, while shaped by upbringing and culture, is also shaped by some kind of interior wiring.
Yes, for sure.
And so the deeper that we go into this work, the more I'm like, I want to have a conversation with you about the intersection of Enneagram and conflict.
Mhm.
Because I
Mhm.
bet there's some ways in which these 9 types interact with it. So, Rob, for those of us who are newer to the Enneagram, what is it and how can it help us understand the ways we naturally show up in conflict?
It's a window into our personality. It's a window into our soul. It's a window into our motivation. And I think one of the important things to understand about the Enneagram is it gets typecast as a personality tool. This is who you are, and this is your collection of behaviors, and that defines who you are. And yeah, there are 9 types of personalities. There's the type 1, the reformer, the person who wants things to be right and wants to fix the world. There's the type 2, the helper or the giver that just wants to help people and come along with people and improve their lives. There's the 3, the achiever, the performer that creates and speaks and produces. And then there's the 4, the romantic, that's artistic and introspective and cultivates an inner beauty. There's the 5, the investigator, that's just taking information and synthesizing, is trying to understand the world. And then there's the 6, the loyalist or the team player, the person that just wants to be part of something and belong to something and contribute to something and hold things together. There's the 7, like me. That's the adventurer, the explorer, the let's take new ground, let's explore, let's see what's out there, let's have fun, let's bring something to life. There's the 8, like you. The challenger, sometimes called the boss, the one who like wants to take ground and wants to build something and wants to make the world a better place. And then there's the 9, the peacemaker or the reconciler, or the person that gets in that space between people and listens and mediates and creates an atmosphere for reconciliation. So that's really in a nutshell, those are the 9 types. But I think, and again, there's healthy behaviors in each of those 9 types. There's unhealthy
Mhm.
behaviors. There's growth. There's, what are we doing? We're doing well. What do we look like when we're not doing well? But I think really key, especially as it relates to conflict, I think is understanding that it's not just a personality tool, it's a motivational tool. There's reasons why each of those 9 types do what they do. There's an inner core motivation. There's a desire that's propelling them to those kinds of behaviors. And there's a corresponding fear. There's kind of an initial wound in our lives that created this fear. And we're working through that fear and we're trying to turn that fear into something healthy and frame it around a virtuous desire. But as it relates to conflict, I think we need to be aware of the fact that when we're in conflict, that core part of us, that wound,
Mhm.
that fear, that desire, that's what usually is getting pressed on. That's what's
Yeah.
being touched on. And that's what we're responding to.
Mm.
So knowing that each type has a different motivation, a different fear, different desires, super helpful for navigating conflict because we're trying to get to a different place.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just in a conversation yesterday with a couple of friends about interpersonal conflict and when do I find myself triggered? And when I find myself triggered, it's usually connected to what feels like an accusation toward inadequacy or failure or I'm not good enough.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And rarely is a person saying that, but it's amazing to me how that I have this big radar for being perceived as inadequate
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
not good enough. And when that happens, I find myself triggered and ready to move toward conflict.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that kind of what you're talking about?
It is. And the reality is, so there's conflict, right? There's an issue out there. There's this is good, this is bad, or this is trouble. This needs to be leaned into. We need to find a way forward. But when we're triggered, we're not really dealing with the conflict initially.
Right.
We're dealing with that sense of inadequacy, or I'm not feeling loved, or I'm not seen, or I feel insecure, or this feels dangerous. And so it's that emotional response below the conflict that we're initially responding to.
Mm-hmm.
So, so real quick, just for those who are a little bit newer to the Enneagram, here are like the core desires for each of those 9 types. So for that one, that reformer, that activist, I mean, they have the desire deep down to be good. They want to be good. So their behavior, their response to conflict is like, what would goodness look like? Because I want to be good. And my fear is that I'm not good. My fear is that I'm somehow corrupted, that I'm a little less than, and maybe that'll be exposed. And so they enter into conflict with, I want to be good. I want to fix this. And I don't want to be bad. And so that's some of that deep motivation entering the conflict.
Yeah.
For the 2, that helper, giver type person that's generous and always present and always lending a helping hand. Well, they want to be loved. And they want to be unconditionally loved. Not just loved for the things they do for you, but loved for who they are. And they fear not being loved. So they're going to enter conflict with love kind of on the surface. Like, how does this affect me being loved, me, being welcomed, which is different than me being right. And that first one, it's like me being right. It's like me being loved. For the Enneagram 3, that achiever, that performer, they want to be valued. Do you value me? Do you see my worth? And not just I'm valued because I created something wonderful, or, I spoke well, or I preached an amazing sermon. I'm valued for who I am as a person. So they're going to enter conflict with value as a kind of a primary kind of umbrella dynamic. The Enneagram 4, that romantic, artistic type person, their deepest desire is to be their truest self, to be unique, to be oneself. 1 out of 8 billion people. That's seen as that.
Right.
One out of 8 billion, which is why a lot of 4s don't like the Enneagram, because it puts them in a category. They don't want to be in a category.
Right.
And the worst thing for 4 is like not having an identity, just being one of the crowd. And so they're going to enter conflict with the era of uniqueness. 5, competency. The 5, that investigator, analyst type person, they want to make sure they've got all the information, that they're competent, that they're capable of achieving. And their worst fear is like not being capable, not having the information they need to make a good decision, and not being exposed in the midst of interaction with another person. The 6, that loyalist, team player kind of person, their deep desire is to be secure, to be with people, not to be cut off, to be without support, which is their fear. I'm alone. I'm cut off from support. They want to be part of something that feels right, feels consistent with who they are, and that they belong. It's the 7, that adventurer, explorer type person. Well, they kind of want to be happy. I mean, I want to be happy. I want to enjoy life. I want life to be full and rich and full of great experiences. And my greatest fear is I don't want to get trapped in messiness and ugliness and pain. And I don't want to lose out on opportunities because I feel denied or trapped. For the 8s, that challenger, boss, big personality person like you, Jer, one of the core motivations for an 8 is actually to protect the people they care about, to protect the things that God has been building, to protect justice, to protect people, to protect nations, which is why you get involved in heroic, incredibly important tasks, because you want to protect. And your greatest fear is you don't want to be controlled. You don't want other people to rein you in, control you, or manipulate you, right? And then
Ooh,
finally,
I hate being micromanaged.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then that last person, that peacemaker, the reconciler person, they want to be at peace.
Mhm.
That's their deepest motivation. I want to be at peace internally and externally. I want to be at peace. I want the world to be at peace. And their greatest fear is being disconnected from everything, just being alone, unseen, not part of, not contributing. So, so those are some of those fears and motivations that we bring to the table in conflict. And at a subconscious level, if not a conscious level, we're processing in the midst of conflict. And we're being triggered, we're being challenged. Yeah,
Hmm.
I'll pause there.
I feel like for those of us listening in, now would be the moment you just press pause
Yeah,
and scroll back about 3
yeah,
minutes and listen to that again.
yeah.
And for those of you who are familiar with the Enneagram, no doubt deepens your understanding. For those of us who are less familiar, that what just happened there might help you understand something about yourself that you didn't know before and could help you maybe even move in the direction of this tool. That was remarkable, Rob. Now I'm recognizing with 9 different ways, generally speaking, 9 different ways, motivations and fears. That helps me understand why conflict is so complicated
Mhm.
interpersonally. You even started by saying oftentimes when we're triggered, we're not dealing with the actual conflict. We're actually dealing with the motivations and fears.
Yeah. Hmm.
How do we become more aware of our own motivation and fear? And what value do you think that brings when we're dealing with another human being,
Hmm.
specifically as conflict is beginning to emerge?
Yeah. Great question. Maybe one imagery that I find helpful for kind of understanding what's going on at that deep level, especially in interaction with others, is to kind of think of it like each of those 9 types, we're all on a journey. And what comes into play in conflict is when our journey gets like hijacked, blocked, or denied. And that's when it really gets messy. But yeah, we're each on this journey. And really, that journey has 2 parts. When we were born, we had this innate truth, assumption that we would be provided for, we'd be cared for. There'd be some human being out there, our mother initially, but there would be some human being that would like protect us and care for us and feed us and change our diapers, that we would be safe, cared for, and then that we would be unconditionally loved. Those are the 2 realities that every of the 8 billion people in the world, we all were born with this expectation to be cared for and loved unconditionally. Real early on in life, we learned the hard way. Doesn't always work out that way. In fact, it never works out that way. It's
Yeah.
like actually my behavior changes people's response to me.
Mhm.
When I scream and throw fits and do things, like people respond differently. And it doesn't feel like unconditional anymore. And maybe I even feel a little bit looked away from or
Yeah.
neglected. So anyway, that dynamic, which is again called that original wound, something happens in us that's like breaks. It's that sure thing of being loved and taken care of is not so sure.
Yeah.
So what I need to do is I need to put on my game face. I need to develop a persona to make sure I get that. Because I just learned at age 3 or 4 or whatever, that's not a sure thing, but I can go back and get that.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to develop this personality that gets that care and gets that unconditional love.
Mm.
Is that bad? It just is. It's light. It's
Yeah.
just, it's a dynamic. So that's like sometimes called the first task of life is
Mm.
like developing the personality that gets you what got lost.
What's amazing to me is like the most fundamental decisions that shape so much of the rest of our lives and the way that we understand it happened
Mhm.
when we were like 2.5.
Yeah.
Like we made these decisions
Yeah. Yeah.
before we even had the ability to think carefully about them.
Yeah. It's buried so deep. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not a psychologist. I won't dive deep into the wounds, but we all know that something broke. And now I'm trying to earn that thing that I thought was a given.
Yeah.
And so that's not bad. It's just the first task of life, figuring that out. Where it gets bad is when it doesn't evolve. And that kind of our
Mm.
strategy becomes a caricature, becomes an exaggeration. And we can all think of like drawings or paintings of caricatures of people, right? And they look obnoxious and kind of gross and out of proportion. And that's what our life starts to look at if we just stick with this. I'm going to create a personality that gets me what I want.
Hmm. Hmm.
Healthy people come to a point where they realize that's not going to work. I've become a caricature. I've become embarrassing. I'm becoming something that's unhelpful for society, for my family, for my spouse, for my kids. And so they turn to the second task in life, which is becoming the person they were created to be. So first task, becoming the person that'll get what was broken or lost. Second task, no, I'm going to become who I am, who's really meant to be. So
Yeah.
that's what I call that journey home. So that second part is, okay, we're all on this journey home. I'm trying to become this person. And in the midst of conflict, sometimes we feel like, wow, that got blocked. I mean, I'm trying to get home and you got in my way. And that's what I'm responding to. So, yeah.
Oh, that's really insightful. I love the first task, second task, and, I find that in my work, I spend a lot of time with people who are really making significant decisions around that second task. And I feel like we live in a moment in time where significant leadership is being exercised by people who are still stuck achieving that which they didn't get when they were young. This journey home, this journey of evolving, doesn't happen accidentally, Rob.
Yeah.
And I wonder, how has the Enneagram, how has it informed your journey home? I just feel as I've even observed you and as you've invited me into this journey in different ways, the tool itself has actually created some guardrails for me around who I am becoming, and help us understand what that journey looks like and how the Enneagram can help us.
Yeah. The Enneagram is sometimes called the 9 faces of the soul. And I like that because it's kind of 9 perspectives or 9 angles or 9 reflections of what I believe is a divine image. And we see humanity in its most glorious beauty and fullness when we see all 9 faces of the soul. In Enneagram language, they call those the virtues that each Enneagram type brings to the table, that brings to the world. And when those 9 virtues are all like shining and working in unison and working together, it's like, wow, this is what it's supposed to look like. This is what people are supposed to be like. This is what humanity is supposed to look like. So that becomes a really helpful idea. Like for each type, it's like, so what is my virtue?
Yeah.
What is the thing I can bring into this world that shines, that's remarkable, that's healing, that's inspiring? And they're not the same. I mean, each of the 9 types has a different virtue that they bring into the world. And in an interesting way, it's a virtue that you only arrive at by working through your vice. It's almost like our virtue is like after we work through our darkest stuff called our vice, and we grow through that and we become healthy, integrated individuals, then we see this virtue. So,
let's go vices and virtues then. Bring
should we
them.
do it? Okay.
Yeah.
So for the Enneagram 1, that reformer, that let's make the world a better place person, their virtue is serenity. Serenity, like they're at home. Now their vice is anger because they see how broken things are. They see a messed up world, that they get mad at people, understandably. They see what's happening in the Middle East. They see what's happening in Ukraine. They see what's happening in our own country, and it makes them mad. And they can get caught. They can get stuck. We can get stuck in our vices.
Yeah.
But if we can acknowledge that, that's really the first step. I acknowledge my anger. I see my anger. And we work through our anger, which is a whole another conversation, all the growth processes. But if I can work through my anger and get to the place where I'm serene, where I'm at peace in a world that's ugly.
Yeah.
And the world sees, wow, there's that reformer activist person who can get pissed off really easy and get really worked up easy. But right now, man, they are serene. And that is, that's gorgeous, right?
And contagious and deeply influential.
Yeah, exactly. And so then there's the 2, that helper, that giver, that generous, always lending a helping hand. Well, their vice is pride, which is like pride.
Right.
They're just the helper. They're the, good teammate. Well, it's pride because they know how much they help. They know all the good things they do, and that can, on a bad day, seep into their head. And it can also lead them like to do things to be loved. I'll help you because really I want to be loved. I mean, that's my deep motivation we talked about earlier. So they can get into a people pleasing mode. But when they break free of that, I'm not doing this to please you. I don't feel like I have to earn love. I feel loved.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm loved and I'm able to love back, and they bring unconditional love. That's their virtue. Unconditional love. No more earning. Just I'm here and I feel loved. And we see that. It's inspiring. I'm going to keep going, but you can jump in.
No, I'm loving this. Yeah.
Okay. Then there's the 3, that performer, the person who gets just a ton of stuff done, the achiever, the type 3, the gift that they bring, the virtue that they bring into the world is authenticity. Now, the dark side is deceit. You can just imagine someone who's used to achieving, used to accomplishing things, used to being upfront. It's easy for them to kind of spin life and experiences in a way that hides failure, that hides, inadequacies. And so everything is like shiny. And so that can lead to a sense of, I'll make everything look good even when it's not good.
Yeah.
But when they can become honest with themselves, honest with the world, and just stand before us with a sense of authenticity, the world goes, that's a trick.
Yeah, that's fascinating because one of the ways I describe a 3 is that they're experts at hiding in plain sight because of the eloquence of spin. And when they are authentic, the influence that it just invites the rest of us to be authentic too.
Absolutely.
When a 3 lets their hair down and says, I can be imperfect, incomplete, and in process, the rest of us can say, oh, good, because so are we. You know, it's just such a superpower.
Yeah. That's a great insight too, Jared, because that's true of all these virtues.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one type that kind of radiates it in this surprising grace way. It almost has that, wow, I did not expect that. But that doesn't mean the rest of us can't be serene. Doesn't mean the rest of us can't feel or experience unconditional love. It just means when that particular person exhibits it, it has that did not expect that.
Yeah. And it has a transcendent impact, I think, when a 2 does unconditional love, or a 1 does serenity, it impacts the entire community differently.
Yeah. For the 4, that artistic, romantic person, their vice is envy because they want to be unique. They want to be special. It's easy to look around all the other unique, special people around them and, oh man, he's better at that than I am. And she's more artistic than I am. And I have a way better website than my website. Yeah. Kind of
that vintage wardrobe is better than mine.
Oh yeah. Their candles are better than my candles. And, but when they work through that kind of comparing and envy and fighting to be unique, and they become their truest self, we see in the 4 this transformation, this beauty evolving. And we see the growth in the 4. We almost see the process of the growth in the 4. Where other types we see the end product. With the 4, we watch this transformation, and it's that is inspiring. Now I want to be transformed. I want to grow. I want to be more myself.
So their virtue is transformation.
Yeah. They show us what the beauty of growth looks like.
Wow. That's good.
Yeah. The 5, that investigator, figure out the world kind of person, the gift, the virtue they bring to the world is clarity. They help us see how things work. They help us see how the universe works. They're like people that put together the puzzles of life. And they're just, here's how this piece goes and here's how this piece goes. Now they can be a bit they can almost hoard that knowledge because they want to be competent. They want to be maybe the smartest person in the room. And so their vice actually is avarice. So this kind of, I'm going to keep all the information to myself. Because I want to be the one to deliver the goods. I want to be the one that presents the paper. I want to be the one that does the research that gets the Nobel Prize. So they could kind of hoard that information when they share it. Generous with all the things they've learned, and they bring clarity to the world. It's wow. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Where are we at? The 6. Yeah, that's that team player, that loyalist, that person who doesn't want to be without support. That's that fear. They want to belong. They want to be part of something. The vice that the 6 struggles with is fear. People might go away. I might lose community. I might lose my team. I might lose my church. It's that something could be taken away, something could leave, and I'll be alone.
Yeah.
But when they work through that, when they face that, they face those fears, they face those things that scare them, and they rise above it, they bring courage. And so their virtue is courage. So in
Yep.
a 6, a person that you maybe wouldn't expect to be all that courageous, when they're courageous, the rest of us feel like we can be courageous too.
Yeah.
They did it, I can do it.
Mm.
The 7, that adventurer, explorer type person, they can get in that pursuit of happiness. They can kind of be a little flighty, or, kind of bounce around a little bit, shift directions. Happiness becomes very much a product of the immediate experience, the immediate moment. Their vice is gluttony, and really not necessarily of food, but could be food, but it's just a gluttony of experiences.
Yeah.
I just want to keep having experiences. And since my happiness is contingent on the value or success of those experiences, but when they realize that life is bigger than just experiences, and happiness is not so fleeting, they experience joy, that kind of settled sense of contentment, and like a deep sense of I'm happy with me. I'm happy with the world, the way I am. Not that it's perfect, but I have joy. So I'm no longer running off to the next thing. I'm okay right here.
And I think, just to break in real quick, Rob, again, thinking about the virtue sides of these as the unique superpowers of these people. Like, as I'm listening to you unfold, I'm thinking about a person who identifies as a 7 in this case. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. When they are content, it settles the RPMs of all of us. We are collectively content. Things might not be as they could be, but we are collectively content here. That is, it's transcendent. It's a superpower.
Yeah. Let's move on to the 8s. I happen to know one.
Oh, you're looking at one.
I love 8s. My whole life I've been surrounded by 8s. 8s, as you know, they kind of get a bad rep because they are like the boss and that challenger. And
we can really bulldoze, but
bulldoze
the world needs more healthy 8s.
Knock things down, all those 8 things. But they also get stuff done, and they fight for things that really matter. And the vice of the 8 is lust. Again, not necessarily sexual lust, but just the lust for more control, the more power, the lust for more ground, for more growth. Just, I want more. I want more. We could be better. And I mean, you can see how that's a good thing. Like, we can be better. We can take more. We can grow. Or it could be really just an example of a corrupted kind of lust. The 8s, I like that superpower. I'm going to use that language you just used. The superpower of the 8, the virtue of an 8 is innocence. And again, it's when that strong, bold person that's kind of used to like shaking things up and being like indomitable, and almost being bigger than life. That 8 says, I'm human. I'm just a guy. I'm just a woman doing my best.
Yeah.
And I need to lay my head down too. And that vulnerability, when the 8 gets vulnerable, and we see that tender, softer side of the 8, we see that innocence. It inspires all of us to be more innocent, to be more vulnerable, to be more real.
Yeah. I resonate. That feels similar to the 3.
There are a lot of similarities.
Right. Because an 8, like, we can hide in plain sight as well, and we love to project strength, but like that, my learning curve over these years has been around vulnerability and how humanizing that is, and what a relief that is for others. That people don't need us to be perfect. They want us to be human.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the transcendent impact right there.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So good. And then finally, the 9, the peacemaker, the mediator, the reconciler. Their vice is sloth. It doesn't mean they're lazy. I mean, 9s can be very productive, and they can actually be very busy. What it really means is they can be slothful with bringing their presence. They can be in the room, and they can be participating. They can be answering the questions, and whatever. They seem like they're engaged, but they're not. Their deepest self is not really engaged. They're more playing a role. They're helping other people connect. They're doing that. Some people describe the 9 as the frame of a picture, and where the other people are like the artwork.
Yeah.
Other people are the character, and they're just the frame, and they kind of disappear in the
Mm.
background. They're there, but nobody's looking at them, and they're not really bringing their full self. But when they do, they bring their virtue, which is presence. I'm here in the room. I'm not just here for you. I am here for you, but not just for you. I'm here for me too. I count. I matter. My opinions matter. My needs matter as well.
Yeah.
So that presence. So serenity, unconditional love, authenticity, transformation, clarity, courage, joy, innocence, and presence. 9 faces of the soul. When those 9 virtues are shining, we shine.
Yeah. It makes me want to build a friend group around it. You know what I'm saying? I just want to build a friend group around the 9 and how to get better together.
Yeah.
But it does, to your point, and two, in a world where I think we want to keep surrounding ourselves with people who are just like us, how desperately we need one another in relationship, and I think in the movement toward justice in particular. And friends, as you're listening in, you can see there are books and books and books about all of this. The beauty of this, Rob, is you've done the work over these years to distill this for us. And I want to get to conflict even a little bit more in a more granular way here in a moment.
Okay.
Just listening to you right now, growing my competency around the 1s through 9s in my life, that knowledge alone carries significant impact as it relates to conflict.
Absolutely.
Because if I understand motivation and fear of whether it's my partner or it's somebody who's on my team, if I understand their motivation and their fear, if I'm aware of their vice and believe with them in their virtue, then that radically transforms the way that I show up with that person. And when we trip into conflict, because we're human, if I have knowledge of motivation, fear, virtue, vice, I can use that knowledge. And if I know the same things about myself, I can use this knowledge to transcend the moment, to transform in the moment.
Yeah.
I can also see where the knowledge, I can weaponize that person's knowledge against them, which is an act of violence. To have the knowledge of the fear and the vice in particular and weaponize those things, I suppose you could also do it with the motivation and the virtue. I can see how that can accelerate conflict. So just the understanding itself is really helpful, I think, as we're becoming conflict competent everyday peacemakers in this world. I do think, though, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I mean, your command of this is amazing to me. Think with us if you can, and if we can go through the types one more time. As each type is moving toward conflict or finds themselves in conflict, what is a question or what is a tool that maybe each type could hold to that would help them become resourceful in the conflict rather than reactionary? I wonder if you can give us each a little toehold into that. And I think that would be really insightful for us.
Yeah. We might all have the same question. I mean, the question might be the same, but then the practice associated with the question or the response to the question probably is different for each type. But I think the questions that we should all ask ourselves is, and I alluded to this earlier, is one is like, where's this person trying to get? They're trying to get home.
Yeah.
And it may look really unphotogenic the way they're doing it.
Yeah.
And it may even be hurtful the way they're doing it, but they're actually trying to get home, which changes the calculus of the whole thing. Now it's not just, I mean, conflict transformation is beautiful and powerful. I know, Jared, you and the Global Immersion team, you have incredible models for conflict transformation and processes to do that. But I think this Enneagram kind of even helps reshape some of the motivation for conflict transformation.
It absolutely can. Yeah, go.
So now we can look at it in the light of, I'm not trying to just fix this issue. I'm trying to help you get home.
Yes.
Like my mission now is, I'm helping you get home. I'm coaching this guy right now, professional businessman, and he wants some coaching. Man, how do I relate better to my wife and understand her better, and my kids? They're teenagers. And how do I just communicate better with them? And so as we're talking, well, help them get home. That's your role. Help them
Yeah.
find their way home. And
Well, and
really,
even, can I even, what even occurs to me and what is, I think, equally helpful for me is the thought of in this moment, we're sojourners together toward home.
yeah, yeah,
Because I can even feel in myself, if my job in the conflict is to help this person journey, that invites me into a hierarchy even, or
mm,
gives me a task that maybe what I actually need is to recognize, hey, we're now in this together, journeying together
yeah,
in this moment toward our collective home,
yeah,
or
yeah,
home base.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And we probably don't have time to go down this path, but really the gateway home is the virtue. So that
Mhm.
you're having that virtue in mind. You know, if I can help the three become his or her most authentic self, I'm
Yeah.
helping that person get home.
Oh, that's so good, Rob.
If I can help the five focus in and get clarity, I'm helping that five get home. I'm not just helping them be a better person, I'm helping them be their truest self and get home. And when we operate out of a home base, we just get along better. Right?
Yeah.
The world is a better place. So yeah, I think for conflict dynamics, and I mean, I think that's one thing I do is, okay, just remember this person's trying to get home.
Right.
Where are they trying to get? And how can I help them get there?
Mhm.
Um, Maybe a related question is what's triggering me, which is another way of saying, am I feeling blocked from getting home?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this Enneagram 7, right? I want joy is my home, my way home. I'm trying to get the joy. And, maybe this conflict is, oh man, I'm getting thrown back in the mire and the mud of
Yeah.
ugliness and dysfunction. I want out.
Mm.
Well, I need the world to help me lift out of that, get back on the pathway towards joy.
Mhm.
Again, that's a long path, and he takes us down the developmental path, so we
Yeah.
don't have time for in this call.
Rob, I'm just struck right now by what I'm calling a fuseless society.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is we don't have long fuses or short fuses. Too many of us don't have fuses anymore.
mm,
And the process that you just even invited us to consider is like a fuse growing or a fuse regrowing process. What I mean is when conflict approaches us, too many of us immediately lose our executive function and move into reptilian thinking, and we're fighting or we're flying away.
mm,
The question or the consideration, what is their home? Or how is this moment blocking me from my journey home? That feels like a fuse growing invitation.
mm,
And so for we who are listening in, again, like I teach regularly that the most important tool for peacemaking or conflict transformation is belly breathing.
mm, mm,
And I wonder how, and that's literally just the stimulating the vagus nerve through big,
mm,
huge breaths that
mm,
push our genes way out,
yeah, mm,
and it's like the belly breathing itself gives us the capacity to wonder those things.
yeah,
And I'm just even wondering how, like, the process of belly breathing and considering those two questions
mm,
is enough to help us engage the conflict more
absolutely.
constructively.
Yeah,
So that alone is enough for me to be like,
yeah,
okay, let me just practice that.
yeah, yeah. That's the
You
big
know,
stuff. That's
that's
the
the
big.
big stuff. And
That is.
now give us, like, there are some actual practical tools that you would recommend, but I think the universal is
Mm-hmm,
let's breathe deeper and let's
mm-hmm,
consider the bigger picture and the
yeah,
opportunity to companion one another in this moment.
yeah. Perfect, perfect. So here are just some smaller, more micro tips, if you will, for each type. So for the one in conflict or in a difficult situation, and after you've kind of asked yourself that question, like, where am I feeling triggered? Where am I feeling blocked from getting home? Where's this person trying to get to? What's their virtue that I could help bring back into the reality? And that takes time. You're not going to have an immediate answer to that. You have to sit with that. You might have to come back to that a week later. You might have to come back to 2 weeks later. But then for the one, I would tell the one in the space of conflict is give yourself grace. The ones need to hear that. Just give yourself grace because the ones will beat themselves up faster and harder than any other Enneagram type because they want things to be right and they know they're not totally right. And so in the midst of conflict, give yourself grace. You're going to feel some anger. You're going to feel threatened. You're going to feel these things. That's okay. Just feel it and don't beat yourself up. For the twos, I encourage them to prioritize authenticity. In other words, be direct and ask people for what you need and for what you want. because twos often feel like I can't really be direct because I need to more please. I need to like let you lead and I respond. And so for the two is they got to really consciously think about, okay, I need to tell you what I need in the situation.
That's really good.
For the three, check in with your emotions. The threes are really good at understanding everybody else's emotions. They are very attuned to the emotions in the room, where everybody's at. They can respond to that really well. But they're, of all the Enneagram types, they're typically the least attuned to their own feelings. So, I mean, they're the ones that got to check in with your emotions, not the emotions of the room, your emotions.
You're on.
Fours, I encourage fours to focus on the facts, not just the feelings. So they'll instantly be consumed with the feelings in the space of conflict, the relationships, the dynamics, and they're feeling everything on at a hyper level. And so the fours need to be reminded there are facts. There is like data points. Like focus on those. And it's not don't feel, but don't just feel. Lean into the actual facts. For fives, the Enneagram 5, the investigator type, pay attention to your body. So fives classically live between the earlobes. I mean, fives are just here all the time and not attuned to the fact that their body's breaking down, that their stress is, taking over some portion of their body. So for the five, they're like, man, how does my body actually feel? What is the somatic result of this conflict on me? For the Enneagram 6, that loyalist, trust yourself. Trust yourself. Sixes are great at trusting others. They're great at trusting the room. They're great at trusting leaders. They're great teammates. But God is guiding them as well. And we need to hear God's voice through them as well. So trust yourself because you matter. And how the Spirit is working through you, we need that. For the Enneagram 7, I encourage the 7. I encourage myself. Sit with negative emotions. We want to blow by them. Okay, that was bad. Yeah, that sucked. Boom, I'm off. And I don't learn, I don't grow, I don't even heal if I don't sit with it. Now, I say that metaphorically. Sometimes the 7 actually needs to walk with negative emotions, run with negative emotions, or surfboard with negative. Something physical, something active, something that's movement, but consciously allow the negative emotions to be observed and understood, confessed, and healed, rather than just blowing by them. For the 8, in the midst of conflict, encouragement would be to speak out vulnerability, to not just be vulnerable, which is an amazing thing, but to actually speak it out, which is like counterintuitive to everything an 8 is going on in their mind. Because for an 8, especially in the midst of conflict, to admit any weakness is like giving ground. It's giving the enemy a window in, a doorway in, but that's that upside down wisdom that the 8 says, I feel this way in this moment. And but it's vulnerable, it's honest and real. Let that change the dynamic, which is going to require the 8 to trust God, to trust God with the outcome and not just to power through it and will it into being. And then finally, for the 9, that mediator person that can maybe have that tendency to kind of fade into the background, the encouragement for the 9 is do the hard thing. Do the hard thing. Because the 9, they want harmony. They want everybody to be at peace. And the temptation is, let's make this as easy as possible, as little, let's not do the hard thing, which might be being very honest or even confrontational. So the 9 needs to kind of break out of that safe space and do the hard thing. So those are some little tips for each of the 9 types.
I'll be listening to this with my wife, Jackie. I'll be listening to this with my team, this. You just took us around the horn 4 times in this conversation. And I know that it's just the tip of the iceberg of this tool. But there are some real contours that you just helped us with, Rob. And I'm so grateful that you have found this tool, that it has so shaped your life, and that you've done the work for us to be able to articulate it in this way to grow our collective conflict competency, because we need it. I think that one of the most hopeful alternative ways to show up on the planet right now is centered and anchored, in this case, living into virtue rather than vice when it comes to conflict.
Amen.
And I think too many have given up the hope that we can actually live that way. And I think you just grew our hope a little bit that we can. So I'm really grateful, Rob.
Yeah. I just maybe a final thought. When I first got steeped into the Enneagram, and I've read more books than I can count, but it was like 30 years ago. It was a long time back when it was really kind of trendy. I mean, it's still very popular.
Yeah.
Deservedly so. It's powerful. One of the trends, though, I've seen, Jer, that I'm super encouraged by, like in the early years, my early years, at least 30 years ago, it was really pretty self-focused. It was like, I want to know me. Which again, good. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I want to understand me. I want to understand my wiring, how I tick. But it kind of didn't often go beyond. Now I see a real trend towards an otherness with the Enneagram.
Good.
And I love that. It's almost everybody that approaches me now. It's, can you help me with my company?
Yeah.
Can you help me with my team? Can you help me with my elder board? It's othering. It's, I want to understand the other person and what makes them tick and how I can interact with them. And so that's that, as you started, that's that intersection of Enneagram and conflict and team building. And
Yeah. So in any way right now for us to understand us and how we relate to one another better and more constructively, let it happen.
Yeah.
So Rob, you're a guide for my journey, and now for so many of us, we're super grateful. I feel like there's another couple conversations coming on all of this.
We were scratching the surface here.
I know, we did just scratch the surface. And I think in this time, though, we got a really robust view of how understanding this tool and integrating this tool in our own lives and in the lives of our teams and families can help us transform conflict. So thanks for this gift. Let's do this again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it.
What a gift. I hope you caught the steady thread of encouragement running through this conversation. Conflict doesn't have to divide us. When we understand ourselves and one another with honesty and compassion, conflict truly becomes an opportunity for deeper connection, trust, and belonging. Maybe today you heard something about your type or about someone you love that gave you language for what happens when we get tense. My encouragement is, don't just file it away. Try the practice Rob offered for your number the next time you feel your shoulders tighten or your voice rise or your instinct to retreat kick in. Because here's the truth. The goal isn't to avoid conflict. It's to show up in conflict as our fullest, healthiest selves, people who can name what's true, honor one another's humanity, and imagine a way forward together. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Mending Divides. If you found it meaningful, share it with someone you love. Subscribe wherever you listen and keep coming back as we continue to learn how to be everyday peacemakers in a world divided by pain. Until next time, keep showing up, stay curious, and make peace right where you are.